there, this is Sarah from beautiful Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and you have the supreme good fortune and wisdom to be listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Be sure to subscribe and leave a rating using your favorite podcasting app. Thanks.
Welcome back to Two Broads Talking Politics. I'm your co-host, Sophy, and as usual, I'm here with your other co-host, Kelly. Hey, Kelly.
Hello, everyone.
And joining us today is Mike Ellison. He's running for Oregon House District 19. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. Just sort of to start off, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you decided to run for office, what motivates you in terms of running for the Oregon House?
Yeah, so I'm a fifth generation Oregonian, so my family's been in the Willamette Valley portion of Oregon since the 1800s. I grew up in a town called Albany, which is about a half hour south of the capital, Salem. I grew up in a rural area there. After high school, I went to college for a year and just wasn't quite ready for it. And so I worked as a bartender for a couple of years before I met my wife, and we decided to start a family. So I got into the trades and got into the electrical apprenticeship and worked my way through several different levels of being an electrician until I got near the end of my last year of apprenticeship for what's called an inside wire, full-fledged electrician. Decided to return to college and ended up getting a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and a master's degree in renewable energy. I'm a father of three. I have a 14, a 12, and a 4-year-old boy. All will be in different levels of our public education here in Salem. And the reason I'm running is just out of, if you're familiar with the term servant leadership. So I've always been someone that enjoys being of service to others. So I've always volunteered, spent time using my skills as an electrician on various projects, donating material and time to nonprofits that need help in that area, just other volunteer efforts. And so that just led me to see a need in the Oregon legislature, or maybe things that were lacking in. I didn't see enough representation from a true working class person, or not enough representation of the working class, not enough representation from people with backgrounds in STEM, technology, engineering, mathematics, and to increase the ability to solve problems in the legislature. I thought that these things that are in my background would be beneficial. And so I was really called to do this, I guess, towards the end of the 2016 election cycle, when I had just getting prepared to graduate with my master's degree in renewable energy engineering. And I thought I would be taking industry by storm with my background as an electrician. And I was, going to help solve climate change with this new knowledge. And that was about the same time that I realized our federal administration was not interested in that type of work. And so that industry felt as if it wasn't going to be as plentiful as I thought it was when I had returned to get that degree. And so I decided that, rather than go into an industry that may not be as prosperous as I once thought, that I could use that knowledge and those skills in the legislature to try and influence policy in that direction. Pretty much why I'm running in a nutshell. There's several reasons and several things I'm passionate about, but when it all comes down, it's just that belief in servant leadership and taking this position out of desire to be of service to others.
So I was trying to understand the complicated history of this district in recent years, and it looks like the current incumbent has been in that position twice, but both times was appointed and not elected. It seems like there's been a lot of turnover there.
Yeah, so during a good portion of the 2000s, the representative at that time resigned I think it was in 2012-ish cycle to be appointed as a Marion County commissioner. And so the current incumbent was his chief of staff, So at that time, they appointed her to fill his role until the next election, when somebody else ran for the seat and won, served a term and a half before she just resigned in January. And so they again appointed the current incumbent for the second time. So yeah, she's held the office twice, but never, this will also be her first campaign.
Well, and it looks like she had a little bit of trouble in the primary, that she was primaried and then didn't get a huge percentage of the vote.
Right. It was a very interesting primary, and the three very different candidates. And yeah, I was a little surprised that the second place finisher was able to garner as much support as he did, but it's just kind of the nature of politics here, and especially with that party. You had two more moderate candidates and then one kind of to the extreme, and to the extreme got a decent percentage of the vote. I was surprised.
So tell us about this House District 19, and kind of where in Oregon it is and what the makeup is in terms of towns and demographics.
Yeah, so it covers the southern and eastern portion of Salem, which is our capital, and then so it's a good portion of suburban Salem, and then it also covers Almsville and Turner, which are rural towns to the east of Salem. Area-wise, it's a pretty large district. It is about 2/3 rural in area, and then 1/3 would be the southern inside city limits of Salem, and then East Salem is also a good rural portion. Population-wise, it's about 2/3 suburban, 1/3 rural. And so, a good portion of the district is normal suburban neighborhood, walkable houses, but then the big area mass that's to the east is a lot of local farms, family farms, things of that nature.
And so, what are the kinds of issues that you're hearing about from voters on the ground there? What's sort of motivating them in this cycle?
I hear a lot about, obviously, what's going on the federal level, but that's usually not something I like to focus on, especially when I'm out making voter contact and try and keep it close to home. We have a pretty major housing crisis going on right now. There's a lot of people that just can't afford our housing prices, and it's a little larger problem in Portland, but it's definitely trickled down and is having a large effect on Salem as well. And we've also had a couple large employers move into the area that are getting to ramp up hiring, several thousand employees expected to come into the area. And there's a big concern over, where they're going to live and what effect that's going to have on our infrastructure in our little area out South Salem. There's also, Oregon's education system is always a hot topic. We're one of the lowest in graduation rates in the country. I think right now we're second or third lowest in the country for graduation rates, where our classes are too large. We don't invest enough in school infrastructure and things like that. So that's always a big topic. And then out in the rural areas, there's, agricultural issues, water rights issues, use of pesticides and things like that pop up from time to time. But I would say mostly the conversations center around housing, education, and then the economy, of course.
So you mentioned being able to use the skills that you have in your training and your background to help you out in the state legislature. So could you explain a little bit about what that would mean, what you see the state legislature being able to do about a push toward renewable energy, and how you see your ability to help them in that process?
Yeah, so I have experience in two, communities, you could call them. So I have a good handle with the environmental community and being an environmental activist and, understanding the harm of climate change and what, how it's affecting us. And then also my background in labor, being a union electrician and, a member of IBEW since 1996. These are two groups that typically butt heads. So the environmental community and the labor community are often at odds over which projects to pursue and whether or not, they're healthy for the environment. And to me, it seems like we need those two groups in alliance with each other. So my philosophy is that, with the amount of infrastructure not just in terms of energy generation, but in terms of roads and transportation issues. The amount of investment it's going to take for us to be a real leader in that field. It's a enormous provider of jobs, and so we not only need to make sure that we can make the investments to get those jobs out there, but at the same time we need to make sure that they're paying living wages, providing good benefits, that our licensing laws are healthy enough that we're making sure that skilled people are doing the work. And so a big part of my mission is to just help bring together the environmental and the labor communities so they can start working together and work towards common goals rather than kind of the division we're seeing here now. And I guess there's also, you hear, and it always frustrated me when you hear an elected official or someone in a decision-making role making decisions on whether it be climate change or, any kind of science, and their first response is, well, I'm not a scientist. And then, use that to justify ignoring the science or the data. So part of, my other motivation for this is just being someone there that can say, well, I am a scientist, and this is why, I think the way I do. I'm just, having someone in there with the ability to trust science, do research, and just use logic and reason for a lot of these decisions that seems to escape a lot of our electeds.
We often talk to women candidates about raising kids and being a parent, and it feels like very often the media doesn't focus as much on, and I'm including us in the media here, as much on dads running for office and the importance of parenting when you're running for office for fathers. And so especially with the ages that your kids are, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, how parenting has influenced your decision to run for office and doing it now.
Yeah, that's this is great. So it wasn't very long ago. I remember one of our other people here running for office, a mother running for a state legislature seat, and this had come up about how would she balance parenting and running for office. And, a lot of people decided that, or, correctly, you pointed out the fact that was kind of a misogynist or sexist comment. And, I had chimed into the conversation with saying that nobody had ever asked me that question.
Well, now someone has.
Yeah. So, I have a great family and support group around. I do take pride in being a very active dad, and I've coached sports and, give them rides to school and pick them up when they need to. And so, one of my promises to myself is that during this process, I wouldn't miss big events. So I have, my two older boys, one's in orchestra and one's in band. And so I made it a point not to miss any of their concerts during this run. And yeah, the support group is huge. My wife is great. She's, it took a while to get her to buy in, but, I think once the competitive edge in her came out, she's on board now. And so we also have her parents and my mother that live both within a mile of us that they've always been helpful to us. So, they're always willing to take the boys or get them where they need to be in order for us to do what we have going. So the schedule, although it's grueling running for office and having a full-time job and being a parent, it's not really something super new to us. While my wife was going through college, I was in my apprenticeship working full-time and also bartending on weekends. And then when she finished college, I worked full-time and was going to college at night and on weekends. So it's just kind of something that we're used to, and we've always, picked up the slack for each other when and where we need to. And then, having family close by to help out is also a huge benefit. I constantly am grateful for, that kind of support group. And it definitely wouldn't be something that would be possible or that I would be even willing to try without that.
How do your kids feel about you running for office? Are they getting involved in the campaign? How are they sort of reacting to that?
They think it's cool. They haven't gotten super active yet. I have tried getting them out on the doors a couple times with me, and the resistance is lessening. So I think it's going to happen soon. I that was one of the things I told them I wanted for Father's Day was for them to go out and knock doors with me. And it didn't quite happen, but I think it's going to. And they like talking about it, and we made them T-shirts with the Mike Ellison for Oregon logo on them. And my middle son, my 12-year-old, I had to tell him to wash it a few times because he'd worn it so many days in a row. It was kind of gross. And yeah, my older boy is